The first rule is maybe the most important and the most crucial when it comes to keeping your room neat, tidy and clean. Change your mindset. It's not about cleaning up after every action, but preparing for the next. It's the concept of resetting a room. You don't put the pair of kitchen scissors back into its place because you've used them in the past, but because you're planning on using them again in the future. Referring to the future will make it easier for you as you would refer to the past. If you understand and internalize the concept of priming your environment, tidying up suddenly gets a completely new twist. Because let's be honest, for most of us, tidying up does actually feel like a burden because we've done what we wanted to do. For instance, we got dressed, but tediously hanging all our shirts or dresses back onto the hanger isn't beneficial to the process anymore, so it gets on our nerves. Except if you see it under the concept of resetting your room and priming your environment. If I start working or start cooking or start working out, everything is in a great shape, simply because I put everything back in its place, and this is a lot easier when you have the mindset of tidying up your environment in your brain. So the following two strategies will be more practical, way more practical. I want to put this one up front because I always find it so fascinating how much you can change through your mindset. Mindset is so powerful. Even if I'm into highly practical strategies, I learned that dressing the mind when I want to change is extremely powerful. So next, before we continue, quickly pause the video and count how many surfaces you see in your room where you potentially could place something on, for instance, your keys when you come home or your wallet. So you might be laughing, but the number one reason why I sold my sofa was because I couldn't discipline myself not to lay something on top of it. So I did, and I still am trying to get rid of any possible surface around me. In science, you call this a commitment device. There's a funny story to this concept which will make the strategy totally comprehensive for you, I hope. There was some author way back in the day, somewhere in the 19th century, who had a deadline to hand his new book in by the end of February. The problem, all that the guy did was having parties and going out for entertainment. So 8 weeks before the deadline, he hadn't written a single sentence. So what did he do? He told his wife to lock away all his clothes so he didn't have anything to go out and meet people. What happened? 2 weeks before the deadline, he finished his book as he forced himself to stay inside and start writing because he simply didn't have any clothes to leave the house. And on a macro basis, that's nothing else than removing as much surfaces as you can in your home, because the less shelf space, the less placing items where they don't belong to. You simply reduce the temptation. When I get home, there aren't that many places where I can place my keys. In fact, there are only 2 spaces where I could leave them, and since I reduced drastically, I simply don't search my keys that often anymore. Now, if you say, Luke, it's simply impossible to get rid of surface areas in my home because I'm dependent on that piece of furniture, try placing a plant into it to reduce the space you have within that area on top of the area. Reduce space so far that it simply feels wrong to place something there because it's so obvious that this doesn't belong there. And lastly, become a minimalist. If I break my home down to the essential function it has for me, beside the basic desires, of course, every human being has, like food, sex and sleep, I want to film, edit, read and work out. And that's all you see here. Camera gear, my MacBook, books and gym equipment. The less friction, the more focus. The less clothes, the less tidying up. For instance, try to get cases or bags for every single item group. I, for instance, bought myself this case for my pencils and a small bag for my microphone setup. Everything is just compact and looks much neater and much tidier. Even if you might feel like, okay, $8 or €8 or £8 for a case to put my pencils in is a waste of money, believe me, it's not. You just have less flying around when you keep everything in cases. The secret is to have as less objects as possible falling into your sight. This doesn't mean having less objects in general, but just having less objects loose. I, for instance, keep all my camera gear ready to charge in this drawer. I don't care if it's a little chaotic in there because I don't see it. But I simply reduce the amount of items which are visible for me, which reduces the amount of items which I potentially could tidy up. Now, as you might notice, all these strategies are for people who are lazy. I'm lazy too, guys, believe me. And that's minimalism makes my life so much easier because it reduces friction around me and gives me focus. So if you can, maybe you should give it a try as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope these tips helped you a lot, and I'll see you next week for next week's video. Peace from Germany, and stay healthy with Luke.